Actually, we had intended to have a panel discussion after the talks, and now, since we knew that there's not too much time, and we wanted to get you as an audience involved, I see that some of you are really hanging around after so many talks. We should immediately start into the discussions and involve you. Just 4 short statements on why it is really important that we do something about trust, security, and data protection, because otherwise our users will not subscribe to our services. Just as an aide-memoire, I leave that in the background during the discussion. What we wanted to really see is how can FI-PPP help to recreate the trust in the privacy? How can we achieve a pan-European vision of a cybersecurity? How much security risk can we take promoting security technology made in Europe? Maybe even with the NSA scandal, this is a very good opportunity. Ethical clearance to run FI-PPP cross-border experiments and commercialize the novel apps. So that are issues which I leave here as an aide-memoire. And now with this very cross-disciplinary panel here, we should probably have the opportunity to have good discussions. Do I see any first questions, please? Yeah, please. Could you please go to a microphone? I think my colleagues are recording the sessions, and they can only record it when it's going through the microphones. Thank you.
Just because you've raised the key issues here, in terms of them, what has presently been done to achieve them, and what resources are devoted to these key issues thus far, before we brainstorm future?
Does anybody feel like answering the question?
I mean, from the FI-PPP itself. Yeah.
Please, Michael.
Testing. Go ahead. So, security is difficult, privacy is difficult, and small and medium enterprises struggle with it, large enterprises struggle with it, local government struggles with it. If we're going to achieve a secure and private future scenario, then it needs to be made simpler. It needs to be consumable, and it needs to be people in these businesses need to be helped. And I firmly believe that the approach FIware is taking by creating a platform and making it simpler to consume is a big step in that direction. So from my perspective on the technology side, it's really the FIware making security and privacy easier to consume, easier to use for people.
Thank you.
I can support that. Also, like talking maybe a little bit more from the use case point of view, the modular architecture that FIware provides, or generally the FI-PPP provides, was for instance very, very helpful. So in FI content, for instance, we have one university that is involved in some of the experiments that we're doing, and they had, for instance, ensured their students and teachers at this university, a British university in that case, that the data would not go out of house, right? They would keep all of their privacy-related data within the university, under the control of the university, which kind of conflicts with a cloud-based architecture where you kind of think everything will be somewhere in the cloud, even if it's a European cloud. And the modular architecture made it very simple to have the identity management, which was holding all of the privacy-related data on site at the university, and still take advantage of the cloud architecture. Just as one example of how this flexible architecture can be taken advantage of in this architecture. That would not be possible with let's say, an Amazon-based architecture, because everything is outsourced typically. And the other point is that for some degree, I mean, FIware and FI-PPP is mostly technology projects, and so we're providing the building blocks that can be used for the next level, right? I mean, there's obviously a lot more about just providing the technology, but it must be used. I mean, avoiding collecting the data in the first place is, of course, the most important part. But also, once you have the data, how to handle it. The technology can only provide you the means to do that, but the decision of what is the best use of that technology still needs to be made. And that's not fully addressed in this program. And it's also very application dependent, so I don't think it can be addressed in a generic way.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, of course, not everything can be addressed by the program, but the program should get the competitive advantage it deserves through having not a closed environment, but a limited environment, and it is really giving can give a competitive advantage to the thing. Do we have any more questions?
Pieter, if you would give me the floor, I very much like some of the questions on your slide, and I'm looking at the last but one bullet, security, technology or privacy solutions made in EU. We have a lot of discussion about the European cloud as the response to the things that we have learned about in the last year. And it would really be interested what Demosthenes and Klaus-Dieter think about this question, if they can make statements on this. On the European cloud as a part of a secure technology made in EU, or a security technology solution, services, whatever environment made here. Would that be somehow an element of a response to the challenge that we all feel that we are facing since the revelations that started in June last year?
Shall I?
You want to say anything, Demosthenes?
We have been involved in this discussion as well. Possibly can be a solution. I would just like to reiterate the point that I made in my presentation, the fact that it cannot be done only at the technological level or only at the policy level. Already, for example, I know that the DPAs have been discussing this issue within the Article 1029 technology subgroup. This has to be a joint effort between on the industry side, but also on the policymaker side. Otherwise, it will not work. And usually, if I want to be very blunt, this is usually where we make it wrong in Europe.
Maybe let me address this from my point of view. It all comes down to trust at the end. I mean, who do you trust to deal with your data? And I think the best approach there is to minimize the trust that you have to place on other people, or organization, or political whatever. And I think that is very clearly a technology, or there is a strong technology part to that aspect, in order to be able to just not make the data available to even the platform that you're doing the computation on. Currently, there is limitations on that. I mean, and if you want to do computation on data, then you have to have it in clear text. There is some research on some advanced technology, but that's not really practical in any way at this point in time. So if you run on someone else's cloud, there is still some issues there, but I think there is actually technology that comes up that at least reduces that trust that you have to place on the provider of this technology. And so beyond that point, I think there is a lot of technology that can be provided. And then once we have a certain amount of technology, and Chiara and other parts from FI-PPP is providing at least part of that technology, a key part is then to make that open source, to review that by the scientific community, by other experts, to certify, maybe even formally verify the technology to be correct with respect to some specification maybe, and really provide trust in the technology itself, right? Then you still need to put that in the real world out there, and there's a certain amount of trust, as I said, that is still required. But I think we can try to minimize that trust that we have to place on other people or organizations.
But how can you get this trust translated, this technological thing, translated to the normal user who does not have a clue on how the technology works? How can you make the user confident that what you say, what we in the scientific area say, is true, and we have a good grip on the privacy? I mean, people might trust Deutsche Telekom. People do not trust a hidden function that, yes, privacy and data protection is built into the system, how can I, as a normal user, check this? How can I, as a normal user, believe you? Do you have any views on that?
You have to believe in what I tell you. So in the end, no, but it's not only technology. So this is the problem. Privacy is a much broader approach. We need to have some kind of commitment of governments, commitment of people, of businesses, and understanding of the people out there that will be or shall be our customers. And then after that, this is supported by technology, because technology is always only as strong as the people that use this technology. And we have to bring the people there to accept a culture of privacy that tells them, if I have the data, I have to handle them, I have to be careful with them. This is the main point. And when the people believe in what you say about this, they will also use your services. This is behind it. And we do a lot in communication. Outside Deutsche Telekom, we implemented a data protection advisory board in which politicians and people from NGOs sit who give advice to Deutsche Telekom Group. We publish a data protection security report once a year. We give the people, the customer advice via data protection, small handbook for them so they can see what they can do. We work together with Mozilla on the future of mobile privacy to implement privacy solutions on mobile operating systems for smartphones. These are all things we communicate, and people see that we're really doing something. And in this case, when you say our cloud solution is secure, you can rely on that, they will be able to believe you. So this should be an additional aspect in your on all your activities to make it very public and well known to the people.
Thank you.
One small addition to this: reputation-based systems exist for a very long time, and there is a lot of research being done on reputation-based systems currently as well. In a nutshell, you have a centralized and decentralized solutions. Possibly, in the context of data protection for European citizens, the policymakers should have a role, the data protection agencies, in order to play the role of the centralized actor that guarantees that the system will not be tampered with. But solutions do exist.
Sorry, before we go on this, let's see whether there is urgent questions from the audience, because we really need to get the audience involved if they want to.
Just a couple of observations. I mean, I've very much enjoyed, especially the multidisciplinary aspect of it. But first of all, there was a question about the FI-PPP and what is the FI-PPP doing to
Can you speak up a bit? It's difficult to understand here.
There was the question about what the FI-PPP is doing. And one of the specific projects, FI-STAR, is looking at taking the technology which is being provided and then taking the data, the software to the data. And that's particularly important. You know, as a UK citizen, one of the examples given by Anissa was you can't trust the NHS with your data, and you can't trust the government either, who just asked us to release all of our data. So there is, within the FI-PPP, an attempt to do this. But the more important thing, and the question I'd like to throw back to the panel, it's not a technology issue. I mean, I appreciate what is happening in the technology area. What Klaus-Dieter said from Deutsche Telekom is extremely important, because it's actually the regulators themselves who, at the end of the day, are going to make us as citizens trust, or give us the ability to trust. And one example that I would quote is Boston College. From an ethical point of view, Boston College guaranteed confidentiality, and yet at the end of the day, the regulator came in and said, no, you cannot do that. And so what does that do? That actually undermines anything which the technology could do and which an ethical standards body could do. We actually need the people, we need the government involved, we need everybody involved to be able to understand what the technology can provide, but also to work together with all the stakeholders so that we get the answers right.
Thank you very much. That was more a statement than a question. We have about 3 minutes left. Could we? Does anybody feel like wants to take it up quickly?
Well, maybe that, in a way, that was the the offer that I made in my presentation, that we as regulators are happy to get involved with anyone who's trying a serious effort on developing more privacy-friendly technology. So that's the offer that we made with the IPEN initiative, and where we are very happy to collaborate with anyone who's working into that direction. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I think there's one, and I completely agree, regulation is very important. I think there's a dimension about regulation which is also important, that we need to create an environment in Europe where we're competitive. So I think that regulation needs to be really carefully thought through, such that it creates an environment where innovation can happen in this space, rather than regulation which dampens innovation. Because at the end of the day, that's what I guess the European Union is all about.
Thank you very much. In taking the time into account, can I ask everybody of you, please, to say one word, one keyword, which is for you the most important keyword for privacy and data security for FI-PPP? Starting with you.
One word.
Yeah, one word of.
For me,
a lot.
One key.
Already two.
New start. Cloud is a new start. 3 minutes.
Common understanding.
User control and transparency. One word.
One word is very little, so I would choose trust.
I think minimizing the data collection is a key subject.
Interaction between the main sector actors.
Even though I had the longest to think about this, I still only came up with, well, probably the same avoidance of data collection wherever possible.
Thank you very much. We leave it standing in the room. You think about it. The results of this session will be on the internet, so you can read all the slides. You can hear all the discussions. It is captured and will be on the internet. So thank you very much for the session. Thanks to all the speakers.
Thank you very much
for your talks, and thanks to the audience for your questions and for your patience.
Okay.